Good afternoon, everyone. I first want to say I have the utmost respect for my friend and colleague, Eric Cardwell. I want to wish him the very best in this election. My name is Dave Wick, and I stand before you as a candidate for Vice President of Naesp. I've been married to my wife, Carrie, for 21 years. I have two wonderful children, Mackenzie, 20, and Murphy, 17. I'm the proud principal of Columbia Falls Junior High in Columbia Falls, Montana. I've been a principal for 21 years, and for the past 18 years have also served as the Director of Elementary Education in our district. I've been a member of Naesp and the Montana Association of Elementary and Middle School Principals for all of those years, and for the last 3 years I've had the honor and privilege of serving on your national board, and it's truly been a great experience. My life has been greatly influenced and enhanced by this wonderful group of people, as well as many of you, and I'd like to thank you for that. I believe your next president should be a collaborative leader, one who listens more than speaks. I believe in this organization as an essential component to the successful principalship. I believe in this organization, and I think we should encourage membership because this organization, as well as our state association, have provided an incredible venue for learning from other principals who have much to teach us. I believe your next president should have the courage to make difficult decisions, the ability to creatively problem solve, and look at all sides of issues. But finally, your next president needs to be able to tell the story of the principal in a variety of settings. This past November, my wife recommended a book to me called The Rent Collector by Cameron Wright. It turned out to be an inspirational story about hope, redemption, literacy, but also a story about stories. It's a story of Ki Lim and Sang Lee, who live in the largest dump in Cambodia. They are garbage pickers, and their son is very ill. One day, Ki finds a book, and the drunken, mean rent collector, So Peep Sin, falls to the ground in tears when she sees the book. Sang Lee agrees to give her the book on the condition that she will teach her to read, for she knows that literacy is the only way to escape her squalid life. And the rest of the story is the lessons of the rent collector, words about hope, about redemption, and the story about words that fit with our daily lives. I've always said if I were ever to write a book about my career, it would be entitled A Million Conversations. The rent collector quotes the prophet Buddha, "Whatever words we utter should be chosen with care, for others will hear them and be influenced by them for good or ill." The first job of a principal is to be a role model, for our words and deeds are watched by our students, staff, and community, and our words are very important. Leaders must have heart and understand the importance of heart. The poet Leigh Hunt once said, "There are two worlds, the world that we measure by line and rule, and the world that we feel with our heart and imagination." And in this world of test scores and standards and evaluations and politics and myriad of duties, we must remember that relationships are central to a principal's role. One cannot influence without relationship. Earlier this year, I introduced a parent in my building named Jeremiah to our new superintendent. Jeremiah was the most violent, unruly student I've ever had in my career. He went to prison at age 15. He measures time by the 17 years since he's been arrested. He turned to Mr. Bradshaw and he said, "Mr. Bradshaw, I would have never made it without the influence of my two principals. And though he may not claim me, I think of Mr. Wick as my dad." It's not about test scores, it's about relationships. And we must always remember, even though we live in both worlds, that we must remember which is the most important, the relationships. As principals, we sell hope. In the book, The Rent Collector, So Peep Sin states at one point, "As human beings, we are born to hope. Whether we like it or not, hope is written so deeply in our hearts that we just can't help ourselves, no matter how hard we try." And that's the job of the principal, to keep the dream alive, to keep hope alive, to bring the only thing that can make those dreams alive, education. Sang Lee, in the end of the book, The Rent Collector, gathers the members of her community at the dump together, and she slowly states, as a wise and great teacher once said, "All great stories, stories that change your nature, stories that touch your soul, stories that cause you to become a better person, all these stories contain the truth." And in our lives as principals, we are shaped by servanthood, whether we live in the rural, the urban, or suburban setting. And whether you vote for me or not doesn't really matter. I just want to leave you with these words from the rent collector. It doesn't matter where you live, sang Lee. It matters how you live. And I want to thank you, all of you in this room, for how you live.
Thank you, Dave. Are you ready for your question? This is the same that Eric Cardwell had. When you were on the road as president representing NAESP, what do you believe will be your most important responsibility and why?
Well, thank you, Robin. I think I've already covered that in my speech. I think telling the story of the principalship is what the president needs to be able to do. But the difference is, I think that what you heard a little bit today was about my story. What I really want to do is listen to your story. I think it's your story and our story that really is important for the president to do in this role. I believe your president should tell the story of how principals live with integrity. I believe that the president should tell the story to inspire and encourage principals, to motivate them in all career stages from beginning to end. I think we should tell the story of why NASP is important. I think we need to encourage the benefits of membership and why it's important for those relationships with other people. And I think we need to put the role of the principalship in the forefront for advocacy and let them know how much training and how important that role really is as educational leader. I think to tell the story and represent elementary principals. In my career, I've served high school, middle level, and elementary level. I've served as an interim principal in the elementary buildings, and so I think I really have a good idea of that K-12 focus necessary for a position like this. And the reason that I think we should tell the story is this job is a mission. The president must be an advocate for all that a principal does, showing enthusiasm, heart, thoughtfulness, a listening nature, and a spirit of inclusion for all those we come across in all the wide variety of schools. I would take this responsibility very seriously, as I have watched and met many of your previous presidents who I admire greatly, and I would do my best to live up to their amazing examples to tell your story as the president of NASP.
Now I have 2 questions left. You may choose one question that you will be answering randomly. The question Dave is going to answer: if given the opportunity to speak to new principals, what message or advice would you want to give them?
Thank you, Robin. I love this question. Talked to quite a few new principals over my career. First of all, I do believe that this organization is extremely important, and my state association as well. Don't know where any of us would be without the support of our colleagues. So I would tell them to join NASP and their state association. Join for the professional development that benefits, but mostly join so you get to know the people and have relationships with those people and learn from them. So that would be the first thing I would tell a new principal. I would tell them to find a mentor. I would tell them either through NASP, through their state association, or if not, just call the school down the road and find a mentor, somebody who's going to help you learn about this craft, which is so important. I would tell them to reflect on their practice. I think it's a very important part of our world is to look at what's happened to us and reflect on it and learn from it. I would tell them to be themselves. We can't be anybody else. I used to tell coaches when they started, don't try to be someone else. And I would tell a new principal the same thing. You have to be who you are and handle things the way you think best. I would tell them to focus on relationships with student, staff, and parents. I would tell them to communicate like crazy. I would tell them to be willing to learn from their mistakes and really understand and accept those mistakes. I would tell them to have a sense of humor. And finally, as Winston Churchill said, never give up. You are doing this unbelievably important job for kids. What's more important than that? What greater task can you have? Don't give up. Sad to see that our principals only last less than 3 years. I cannot imagine that. It's a sad statistic. So I think we need to encourage them, and I would be a coach to young principals given the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Best wishes.